So we're going to start Blender and look at creating a figure. As I say, from images, here we are. This is my startup file for Blender. Your mileage may vary, obviously. And I'm going to hide the camera, the target, and the point light. And I'm also going to get rid of the cube. Just delete that. You can hit X or you can hit delete. And let's begin by adding an add-on to Blender. So we're going to go to Edit and Preferences. In the add-ons, you can see I did this earlier. It's already pre-selected. Search for Image. Import images as planes. This is a very useful plugin. And what it does is if you import an image, it will automatically map it onto a plane in the correct aspect ratio so that it's not distorted. So I'm going to enable that by clicking in the little box here and just make sure auto save preferences will do that. Good. Now Shift A, images as planes, and image is underneath empty. It's not mesh, even though it's a plane. It's add image as planes, and it's asking me to find the image. I'm going to use my favorite here. There we go. And we're going to go up to today's directory, building characters. Going to go, well, I'm going to make a favorite of this. I'll hit the plus button in favorites. So that's today's. And send out. I'm going to choose Skinny Guy. Skinny Guy, remember, if we want to preview it, we click on the button with the 4 squares on it in this group of 3. And there are the 2 that are required for today's, or rather, homework 3. And this is the one that we need today. Skinny Guide, import images as planes. We go down here, we can't see anything. Why can't we see anything? We're in shaded mode. So let's go to Look Dev. There he is. You're going to start by going to Front View. Front View is -Y, remember, -Y, because the Y direction here is increasing as it goes further into the screen. So first thing I want to do, in fact, is to rotate it. So let's just hit R, Z, positive, so 90, enter. Now when we hit -Z, okay, now we need to split this up. Easiest way to split this up is to use the knife tool. I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode. There's the knife tool down there. Yep, there's the knife tool there. The icon, the cursor turns into a little knife. And something like that. Every time it passes an edge, then a little red dot will be created. Left click once and enter. Now we can go back to selection. So we can hit escape. And we've got a line, an edge, cutting this into 2 parts. So let's go back up to object level. And I'm going to copy this. Shift D, R, Z, -90 this time. And I'm going to go to Front View once again. Click on the opposite button to the Y. And make sure that this character here, the front view, is actually, as far as possible, centered on the Z-axis. The blue Z-axis should really run through the middle of his hair there, more or less. So there he is. Let's go into edit mode and select the 2 verts at the extreme right hand side, the side of this side view, and just hit delete verts. Fine, now we've just got the front view. We're going to go back here. We're going to look at this side view. I'm going to hit GX, move it over so that it's slightly past the end of his outstretched arm. Then going to look at it from the side, from X, and move it back, GY, so that we have the Z-axis kind of running through these two figures. May need to adjust it a bit later. Go into tab mode, select the two verts on the extreme right hand side again, but this time they're going to delete the face that contains the front view, and back out into object mode. So now we've got two drawings like this. Trying to zoom in, can't do it. Remember, we go to ortho view, and let's just move that GX over a little bit. Is there a fast way to go from front to side view? Yeah, if you have a keypad on your machine, then front view is 1 and side view is 3. The other side is control 3, back view is control 1. Top view is 7, bottom view is control 7. So now we've got these two guys set up. We got this guy nicely centered on the Z-axis, hopefully, and the YZ plane. And we got this other guy pushed slightly forward. And because they're the identical image, they're in the same position, and they are at the same scale, which probably is too small, but we can scale him up later. Right, so we got skinny guy, 001. Now we're going to add a polygon circle. Going to go to top view, look down the Z-axis here, and I can't really see where I am, but then I'll just add it and adjust it later. Shift A, mesh circle, a mesh circle. You could add a cylinder and take the ends off, but I'm just going to do it with a circle. There it is. It's absolutely huge. So we'll change this. First of all, we don't want 32 verts. We want something like 12. There we go. So now we can see the facets on that. The radius is 1 meter. I'm going to pull it down. Just move it forward so that it's kind of in the right position to match up with the images. And because I created it at 0, 0, 0, it should be aligned with the midline of the front view of the figure. If it isn't, doesn't matter too much, but you want to keep it on the center line because we're going to be splitting it and mirroring it later. So if they don't quite line up, then move the front image, don't move the circle. Okay, I think we're good. I'm going to close this again, and we're in object mode. Let's go to edit mode. I'm going to go to edge select mode with number 2, and just hit EZ briefly and click. There we go. So now we've got a 12-sided cylinder with no top or bottom. And notice that after the extrusion operation, the new set of edges is still selected, still highlighted in orange. So side view, X. We don't just want to change this edge loop, we want to change the other one as well. So hold down Shift and Alt and click on the lower edge loop. So now effectively all of the verts in this topless cylinder are selected. S, Y. Scale it on the Y. G, Y. It's really important with edge extrusion modeling to make sure that your inside and front views, and to scale always along the axis, well, almost always along the axis. There are a couple of occasions when you want to scale along all axes, but mostly you just want to put an axis letter after the S or the R or the G. There we go. Let's look at him from the front, which is going to be -Y. There he is again, SX. I'll pull him in here. So we're starting to get the outline of our figure. I'm going to hit A twice to deselect everything, then Alt left click on the top edge loop, SX again, pull it in. And you can see we're not quite aligned, that the image at the back isn't quite matching, so I'm going to jump out to object mode for a minute, just select that image, go in GX, just try to make it a little more accurate. There we go. Very often you'll find that character drawings aren't actually symmetrical in any case, but if that's the case, then you want to delete one side and go into Photoshop and mirror it before you bring it into Blender. So there he is. He looks pretty good in front view. What does he look like in side view? Not quite so good. So let's select him again, go back into edit mode, and you notice that we still have that top edge loop selected. I'm going to hit R, and I don't need to specify an axis because we're in an orthographic view. The rotation in an ortho view is always in the image plane. And just rotate it. GY, SY, GY, maybe just a regular G, and regular G move command, again in an orthographic view, is always going to be in that particular plane, in this case the YZ plane. Right, that's a good start. We might need another edge loop in the middle, but before we do that, very important, we need to add a subdivision surface here. So I'm going to jump out. There is our skinny guy. I'm going to rename him 1_character. Add a modifier. What's that modifier going to be? Subdivision surface. And in the viewport, I'm going to make it 2. You can see it's looking a bit blanked out. There's an awful lot of white in all this. So perhaps I'll just change the color, naming it character, and I'll change it to, I'll reduce the value so it's a little easier to see. There we go. And we're using nodes. Looking along the X again. Here we are. Go into edit mode. Now we see the mesh, but we also see the subdivision surface. Actually, I'm going to make sure it's smooth. Shade smooth. Back into edit. And you can see, because it's a convex surface, that the subdivision surface is a little inside the control cage. So if we want to be absolutely true to the outlines of our figure, we're going to have to expand it a little bit. SY. G. There we go. And now we want to make a new edge loop, which is a loop cut. There. And now we hit escape. And I want to scale it. SY. And let's hit G. Okay. So now we've got a nice curve that's more or less following the profile that our character designer requested. Again, I'm going to select this lower edge loop, Alt left click, SY, and then G, and maybe R, and G again, something like that. Some character designers get absolutely obsessive about accurate modeling of their figures. Others, it's more a general impression. Alt, left click, E. And because we're extruding edges, we can move them any way we want. But also because we're in the side view, we're moving them just in the YZ plane. There we go. R, E, R, S, Y, G, E, R, G, S, Y. Now when we go out to a 3D view, you can see we're starting to get an organic shape being developed. And you remember these dark patches here are actually where the control cage is concave, and so the subdivision surface is coming outside of the cage. Let's look at him from the front. Minus Y. Okay, a little work to do here. SX. Alt-click. SX. Remember that we're adjusting the subdivision surface, not the control cage. We want the subdivision surface to match the profile. SX. Right. Let's do something interesting, and we'll see the problem that might arise from this. I'm going to go to side view. You don't want to, incidentally, you don't want to extrude in the front view. You don't want to do this because you can see immediately we're going to destroy the symmetry. So we want to go to side view if we want to be making extrusions. So there we're extruding down. Again, R, S, Y. And it may be a little strange constantly to have to define an axis letter. You'll find that you forget sometimes, but it's just a matter of practice. And again, E, get down to basically the top of his legs here, SY, and G. Okay, and probably he doesn't have much of a butt, so I'll just leave the profile like that. Now, we got an interesting problem. We need to divide the legs to have the space between the legs here. So the easiest way to do it is probably to bridge two edges. And before I do anything else, I'm going to go to front view and go to vertex mode by hitting 1. Go to wireframe view. Just select all the verts to the left of the mirror plane or the right of the mirror plane. It depends. It's your call. Doesn't make any difference. So I've selected all the verts to the left of the mirror plane, not on the mirror plane. You want to keep those. And then you just hit delete. Delete verts. Right. So now we have this rather interesting surface. And you notice it's actually curved around because this is the effect of the subdivision surface on the profile. Don't worry about it. It will all be fixed when we add the mirror modifier. So let's add the mirror modifier. Go to modifiers again. We have our subdivision surface here. Add modifier above it, and it's going to be mirror. Right, there it is. Why do we have these kind of divots at the front and the back? Let's have a look at the modifier stack here. This is known as the stack. And you can have 20 or 30 modifiers in the stack. We've got mirror, and then we got subdivision. But actually, the subdivision, these are calculated from the top down, like reading a page of text. So we've subdivided this mesh before we've added the modifier. So this is what we got from the first operation. And this is what we got from the second, pretty obviously. We need to change them around. Just click this down arrow for subdivision, or equally, this up arrow for mirror. That's all it takes. Now we're mirroring the mesh before we're adding the subdivision surface. That makes all the difference. When you have a modifier stack and it's not producing what you think it should be producing, just maybe reorder it a little bit and see if that improves the result. Let's go back to look dev mode. Okay, now this is starting to look not too bad. Let's go back into edit mode. Now whatever we do on one side is going to be precisely mirrored on the other side. We want to bridge these two edges. Maybe, in fact, I want to add some more geometry. Generally, you'd want to be careful about adding geometry, about adding edge loops, but in this case, this is fairly low poly. I think I'm going to add an edge loop here and here. And then I'm going to get out of it, go to edge mode, click. Do I want to use G? No, we don't want to use G because we're in a perspective view. We don't know where it's going to go. We want to hit GG. GG, remember, is the command within edit mode to move the selection along the existing geometry. Very useful. Let's go to front view, -Y, and yeah, that looks okay. GG again. Right. I'm going to go to top view now. Look down here. So we want something that matches this. Alt-click, GG, something like that. Right, now, with any luck, we can select these two edges and we can bridge them. We want to bridge these edges. Edge, bridge, edge loops, I think that's it. Create a bridge of faces. Right, and look at what's happened. Now we have the end of the legs formed automatically by the subdivision surface, and we have a single face created here. We want to expand the options and maybe add 1, 2, 3 cuts. 3 cuts, 2 cuts, let's make it 2 cuts. So now we not only have more geometry to define this area, but it's given it a slight curve. I'm going to collapse that again. Just go to face mode, select this GZ, just pull it down a bit. That looks pretty good. We can change this all later, but now in edge mode, let's select this edge loop around the top of the legs. Alt, click, nice edge loop. And we need to make this more circular. We need to reduce the triangulosity, as it were. So, edge, transform to sphere. I'm moving my mouse. You can see it's kind of transforming to a spherical cross-section as I move my mouse to the right. And as I move it to the left, we're back to the original geometry. You can see up in the top left corner the value to sphere, and I'm going to say about 0.75 is good, and click. And then we get the details here. We can, if we want, adjust it a little bit in post. Let's go to front view again. -Y. That doesn't look too bad. We might need to widen it slightly. But now I'm going to go to side view, X, hit E. And you'll notice we have a little three-dimensional geometry there. That's fine. So extrude mid-thigh, S, Y. And I don't want to retain this three-dimensional geometry. So what do? S, Z, 0. Scale to 0 in the Z-axis. Click R. That looks about right. Let's go to front view. Need a little work here. G. Remember that we're scaling around the center of the geometry. So when I move this to the side, I'm wanting it to overlap the outline of the legs by an equal amount each side. SX. Pull it in. This one needs to come out a bit. Again, SX. This is where we're getting a bit of a problem, because I've selected this edge loop around here, and it's scaling around the center when I really want to scale it just on this side and keep it as it is on this side. Remember that we have differing pivot point options. Pivot point, the 3D cursor. We have to, the 3D cursor is no longer set by a left click. We've got to click on this guy, click, there's our 3D cursor. And now Alt click SX, and you can see the left hand side is staying where it is, the right hand side is moving outwards. So we're going to be jumping between pivot point median and pivot point 3D cursor a good deal from this point on. So again, make sure the 3D cursor is enabled. Click up here, select our edge loop, SX, pull out. And you notice, okay, some little glitch happening up the top there. Well, we'll worry about that later. Okay, was there a question? How do you do the thing where you make it a circle? Okay, well, you have to have a selection. Let's go to the top, and we're in edge mode. I'm going to hit Alt, click, and then we go to Mesh, Transform to Sphere. It's actually Shift Alt S, but I can never remember that. Yeah. Oh, there are some that are even worse. There are some that are actually 4 keys at one time, but that's just insane. So Mesh, Transform to Sphere. Very useful command. We're going to be using it again for the armholes. And right, I'm going to continue with the legs for a short time, and then we'll probably stop this video and restart. Alt click, E, top of the knee. Remember the rule of 3. If I haven't mentioned the rule of 3 before, then I'm certainly going to do so again. Rule of 3 is where you want to have at least 3 edge loops around a joint for it to flex realistically. So this is the first of our edge loops around the knee, SY. Oh, see, I did SY, and guess what? I forgot to change the pivot point back to median. Very easy to do this, and it's infuriating until you get used to what's required. E, R, S, Y, E, S, Y, and then E, R, E. We'll just make it very simple here. R, S, Y. Go to the front view, minus Y, this yellow dot here, and we'll go to viewport display, So wireframe is the option for showing wireframe over the top of a shaded display, which is useful. You don't want that. You actually want to go to display as wire. Much better. So now we can see, if we go into edit mode again, we can see him through the mesh. It's hard to tell the actual edge loops. So I'm going to go to here and just turn off the subdivision surface. Much better. Alt click SX and G. Now we may have to do this a couple of times because the subdivision surface obviously doesn't match the control cage at this level of resolution. Alt click SX G. So there are our 3 edge loops, kind of sort of around the knee. I think actually it might be useful to lower them a little later on. SX, GX, SX, and finally Alt-click SX and GX. There we go. Now we'll go back and show the subdivision by clicking on the monitor icon. Doesn't look too bad. And we'll go back to Object and Display as Solid. Not wonderful, but it's pretty close. We could do a little more work here on the calf area. If we go back out to Object Mode, zoom in. Okay, he's got a few little glitches. I don't know what's happening here. We'll need to tidy him up. And he's also got a little stub of a tail. So let's clean that up. Edit Mode. Let's go back to the mirror. What didn't I do when I created the mirror that I should have done? Clipping. That's part of the problem here. I did not enable clipping. So I'm going to hit A, G, X. Yeah, he's not. You can see this mirror plane is not even. Enable clipping and move him back again. G, X. So there he is. I'm going to say that's relatively good to go and save it right now. File, save. We haven't saved it yet, so it gives us a default name. Building character, we're going to be calling it character underscore 01. Enter once to set the name, enter twice to save the file.